What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So there's a lot of anticipation online right now for Nintendo to have some sort of big blowout direct for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to not only go over the game itself, but potentially a special edition system. Well, now it looks like we're getting some more information that could point to when the system could even go up for pre-order, which would be pretty important for people obviously trying to get this system. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Microsoft as they did respond to the entire Game Pass diminishing sales situation with a quote of their own, and we'll also be talking about Game Freak, who seems to continue to express interest making games even outside of Pokemon. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with a game that just released yesterday, and I was unsure as to how this game would do when it came out, because some of the trailers looked alright, others looked kind of janky. Well, that's Wanted Dead. We can see the Metacritic score that was posted yesterday as reviews started to roll out, and well, based on the system that has the most reviews currently, that is PC, currently sitting at a 59. This game in particular caught some interest because it's from the makers of Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive. Also, the plot and setting sounds kind of ridiculous, as it follows a week in the life of the Zombie Unit, an elite Hong Kong police squad on a mission to uncover a major corporate conspiracy. Take a look at the splits here for critics: 2 positive, 20 mixed, 2 negative. And, you know, I did actually start playing this yesterday because a code was sent over by the publisher, and spent about an hour or so. I'm going to spend some more time with it, even though from what I've played, the game doesn't appear to be very good, and as I said, about an hour, and I feel like achievements are popping all over the place. My skill tree is like 25% filled out, so I'm also a bit concerned that this game is kind of short, but from what I've seen so far, the combat does not sync up very well with it trying to be this hybrid shooter slasher with cover. It's all over the place. Again, I'll spend some more time with it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on the podcast this weekend. Also, we do have PlayStation VR 2 launching next week, and depending on, I guess, where you are in the queue or when you ordered it, got your pre-order in, you should be seeing it hopefully on launch day. Otherwise, for me, there's kind of a window of about 5 days. But one title that will be there next week is Resident Evil Village. And if previous Resident Evil VR experiences or anything go on, this should be very good, especially if you haven't played through Resident Evil Village. This might be the best way to play through it. Well, just in case you were unsure, but you are getting a PSVR 2, there will be a demo that goes live. They showcase this in a trailer that, once again, it looks like it's a very intuitive experience using PlayStation VR 2 with some of the newer features, and I'm sure some pretty good set pieces to make you jump here and there. So that is going to be one of the experiences that I check out right away, alongside of Gran Turismo 7. That is certainly one that I hope to get a bit more out of compared to what I got out of Gran Turismo Sport on that first PlayStation VR. Oh, and if for whatever reason you're still up in the air, you're unsure about God of War Ragnarok, it appears that Sony has started to roll out a trial for you to play the first 3 hours. This, of course, part of their PlayStation Plus Premium program, which we can see this was posted up over on Twitter from PlayStation Game Size, the PlayStation Plus Premium new trial, God of War Ragnarok for 3-hour demo. It, so far, from what I can see, is rolled out in North America, but it seems that there will be a rollout across just all regions. Again, seems like something Sony will most likely announce at some point today to go along with all of their other drops in PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Plus Premium. But honestly, God of War Ragnarok is an awesome title either way, so I would say it's certainly worth the pickup, especially if you're just getting a PS5 now and you're kind of looking around at games that can sort of showcase what your new console can do. I would say God of War Ragnarok is right up there on the top of the list. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and a system that seems to be one of the worst kept secrets at this time. That's a Nintendo Switch OLED model that will be themed around the biggest release of the year for Nintendo. And this originally came out through just images that were dumped online of not only the box, but also the system inside. And since the last Direct, people have matched up different symbols and all this, and yet it appears to be something that is legitimate and will probably be announced any time now by Nintendo. And people are trying to figure out the best time to be ready since, well, we saw what happened with that Zelda Collector's Edition selling out immediately and started getting flipped on eBay for double, even triple the amount. And systems, they can be pretty difficult to get, especially if you don't have them at retail, but it does appear we should see these Switch OLEDs show up with stores like GameStop, as there was a screenshot that started to circulate around yesterday and was sent to me multiple times. I had to kind of track down where it was from. But first, you can see this posted up by Go Nintendo, showcasing a screenshot from GameStop. And this originated from Nintendo Prime, who shared the screenshot in his video. This appears to be a SKU or stock keeping unit for a Switch system that has a release in the system of March 10th. Now, there is some speculation on this as if that's the release day or the time that pre-orders would open up. I'm inclined to lean towards pre-orders opening, and while this isn't necessarily confirmed 100% that this is a Zelda Switch OLED, it does appear to be a Switch of some kind, and let's face it, rolling up to the release of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and what we know about this Switch that just seems to be circulating through images out of a factory, it makes sense. You put two and two together. Okay, this seems like it would be a spot that would be reserved for that Switch Zelda OLED model. Now, the other thing to note here is that March 10th is Mario Day, so it would be weird they would release the Zelda OLED then. That's another reason I'm looking at this as potentially being, one, just a placeholder in GameStop's system. So they're just kind of setting up a spot, and this is just a date that will be fluctuating quite a bit over the coming weeks. And I'm thinking we're going to see that Zelda OLED announced. If it's anything like Splatoon 3, which Splatoon 3 was a weird situation. You have to remember, it technically switched places with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, but that is like the last major Switch OLED special edition system to go on. That released 6 or 7 weeks before. Well, the system itself was announced 6 or 7 weeks before it came out, and then of course that came out weeks before Splatoon 3. So I'm sort of placing the Zelda system to be announced most likely either at the end of March or first half of April, and then it releases towards the end of April. You figure they want to give about 6 weeks from announcement to when it releases. That way, all these different retailers can have them in stock along with pre-orders ready to go. And this is something you're going to want to pay attention to, especially if you're trying to get one, because based on the Zelda Collector's Edition, as well as what we've seen from previous Zelda system releases, it's going to go very, very fast. But like I said, the good part here is you should be able to go into a GameStop, or I guess go on Amazon or Walmart or your typical places to buy rather than have to go through Nintendo's website, which has not gone well at all for really any of these special edition systems or really games that release. They always seem to sell out. So the system itself, keep an eye out. I will also keep you guys posted here so that when it does get announced and we have a pre-order opening date, you guys can at least be there to give you a good shot at getting a hold of one of these before they show up on eBay for 2, 3, even 4 times the amount. Next up, let's talk about a game that is out tomorrow, but the review embargo did lift yesterday. And this is for a game that I've been looking at from time to time, but I'm not the biggest rhythm game fan necessarily, especially when you're just using the controller to complete the actions. But I gotta say, I tried the demo on this one and it surprised me a bit, but we can see this over on Metacritic. This is for Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line. It's a massive celebration for 35 years of Final Fantasy, currently sitting at an 87 on Metacritic. That's on the Switch. I believe on the PlayStation 4, it's a little higher, but it has less reviews currently. I like to go with whatever system has the most reviews. Either way, an 87 is really good for this kind of a game. Again, sort of a rhythm RPG, and you can play a demo of it right now on the different storefronts. It's just available to download, and I did that just to try it real quick on the PlayStation, and it was kind of cool. It's interesting. It is at its core sort of a rhythm game where you just use the different buttons on your controller to match up to things happening on screen, along with directions with the joystick as these different things are flying by. Goes along with the beat, and as all this is happening, at the bottom of the screen, you have a battle that's playing out. And when you get to the end of the song, you get experience, your characters level up, and you go through and you unlock different games in Final Fantasy, and then from there they have quests and storylines, and It's a very deep game, even though at its core, yes, you are just technically playing DDR on your controller. But if you're a fan of Final Fantasy at all, or you really, really like the music, I mean, this is an easy recommendation. There's a lot to this game, nearly 400 tracks, and there's also talk around downloadable content going forward where they could have different packs of music getting dropped in from all different parts of Final Fantasy. Like I said, a really big celebration, and seems like there's a lot going on in this game. So at the very least, I recommend trying out the demo that has 30 tracks for you to just see what you think. And if you like it, you can buy it and your save data will transfer over. So really cool stuff here from Theater Rhythm. I might have a chance to go back to it. It's just a lot of stuff going on right now, a lot of games that I'm playing, but I think this is gonna be one I'll wanna go back to my backlog for sooner rather than later. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and their response to the situation around Game Pass, as we had that report come out from the CMA and they had a lot of documents provided to them by Microsoft, and part of that was around Game Pass actually lowering sales, or as they said, cannibalizing sales after 12 months of being in the service. And well, it makes sense that a game would sell less after 12 months, but it also makes sense that putting a game in Game Pass would actually deter people from buying it if they were a member of the service, since they'll just download it. But Microsoft did have comments around this as Eurogamer reached out to them, which we can see this over on their website. This from a Microsoft representative who says, Xbox Game Pass offers gamers and game creators more choice and opportunity in how they discover, experience, and deliver games. For gamers, that means providing another option for them to discover games and play with friends at a great value. For developers, that means creating another option for how they monetize their games. We're focused on helping game creators of all sizes maximize the total financial value they receive through Game Pass. Each game is unique, so we work closely with creators to build a custom program to reflect what they need, ensure they are compensated financially for their participation in the service, and allow room for creativity and innovation. As a result, the number of developers interested in working with Game Pass continues to grow. So after looking through this statement, Microsoft really didn't say much to dispute what the CMA had with their findings in their report around Game Pass and overall sales declining over that after that 12-month period. So to me, looking at Game Pass and the way it stands currently, at least for third parties, as we know what's going on with first party games from Microsoft and their Xbox studios, they're just going into Game Pass. And it seems like Microsoft is figuring out other ways to monetize even beyond that subscription service, whether it's special editions like Redfall, which has like an additional fee that you can buy and you get a bunch of extra stuff along with the base game, or microtransactions that go along with their titles for cosmetics or maybe even gameplay advantages in the future. Who knows how far they'll take all of that. We've seen battle passes and the like with their different games. But if you are a smaller third-party creator and maybe you have an indie studio that would heavily benefit from a payout from Microsoft to put your game in there for not only the money, but also the notoriety and exposure, makes sense. But if you're a known commodity or a known series like Grand Theft Auto, you're probably not going to show up and put that game into the service because you know you're going to make a stupid amount of money just putting it on the storefront for 70, 80, 90. Who knows? They probably have a $100 Grand Theft Auto 6 edition and it'll sell out immediately. Really, the question around all of this is if this would be a sustainable business practice for anyone other than Microsoft, and the answer to that is we really don't know. I mean, you figure probably not at this time, because the reason Microsoft can do it, they just have enough money to burn if they have to get it to a certain position, which may be 100 million subscribers. And how long will it take to get there? Well, we'll find out when they start releasing some of these larger titles like a Starfield, like a Redfall, like a Forza, to see if that really does pile up the subscriptions and get them there much faster than where they are now, which seems to have stalled out a bit. And the reason we know that is because, well, they stopped talking about numbers, whereas before they were kind of throwing them around pretty regularly. So the future of Game Pass is an interesting thing to follow, and I guess we'll find out how things are really going to set up over the next year as Microsoft at least appears to have several games ready to go. Oh, and something else we have to pay attention to for Microsoft, I know this deal is getting kind of fatiguing at this point, But it does appear that Microsoft will be working to defend their case in court next week, which this is over on Reuters, where they say Microsoft make a last-ditch effort to defend its $69 billion bid for Call of Duty Activision Blizzard in front of EU and national antitrust officials at a closed hearing on February 21st, the U.S. software company said on Tuesday. So this is going to be interesting because they will most likely come face to face with Sony, from what I understand there, because Sony has their own set of objections and all of this. So we'll see if we get any more information next week when all of this goes down. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Game Freak and them wanting to continue exploring game development outside of Pokemon. Obviously, they're known primarily for the Pokemon series in general, for good or bad, but they have worked on titles outside of that franchise like Giga Wrecker, Pocket Card Jockey, Little Town Hero. Not exactly names that are jumping off the page or that notable really, but we can see this posted up by Steven Totillo, who says, Game Freak game designer Masayo Taya tells me the studio is committed to making non-Pokemon games, but that the resource demands of modern game development are pushing the studio to partner with more outside teams. And yeah, it makes sense. We've seen the collaborative efforts that it's taken across thousands of developers at times, like we're talking thousands and thousands, to bring out some of these larger AAA games. But I think Game Freak still trying to find that character or game series that they create originally and that they can latch onto and build on top of. Giga Wrecker, most people haven't played that, right? And if you look around at Little Town Hero, the game just wasn't very good. So I think it's a good idea for them to continue investing in themselves and trying to develop something. And yeah, that also probably means they'll be partnering with more and more studios outside of Game Freak, considering they do need to primarily focus on Pokemon. But I would like to see what other ideas Game Freak has, because I do believe they're a very creative studio, since think about how many Pokemon them along with creatures have had to come up with. So maybe they can finally figure out that big intellectual property, that character outside of Pokemon they become known for. It's just hasn't really gone their way in the last several releases. Although, hey, Pocket Card Jockey, people really like it, and it is part of Apple Arcade. So maybe they continue working on top of something like that and see what they come up with. And before we go to the comments of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you think a remake or remaster of a previously released game should be eligible for Game of the Year? 57% say no, 43% say yes. So this is interesting because I've seen people say Dead Space Remake should be nominated for Game of the Year. I've seen people say the same thing for Metroid Prime Remastered, and I'm sure it will be mentioned for something like Resident Evil 4 Remake. Think about it, Resident Evil 2 Remake was nominated for Game of the Year, but I think we're getting to a point now where we're seeing so many good remasters and remakes each year. We just need that extra category, because I believe if you remake or remaster a game, it should still be recognized, but I kind of believe that the game that should win Game of the Year should just be a new original title. But it is hard to argue with some of the quality that we see out of these remakes and remasters, because some of them are mind-blowing at times, like Metroid Prime Remastered. Dead Space still felt like Dead Space, but hey, look at Resident Evil 4 Remake, and that looks like it's on a whole other level. So I think it's about time we get that category, mostly so I can vote for Metroid Prime Remastered versus Resident Evil 4 versus Dead Space. What a year that is. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Eric, says, I would love to see House of the Dead on the PSVR 2. I'm still a fan of the classic version, voice acting and all. They could even make a virtual arcade cabinet mode to play it in. I do think those pointer shooter on rail type games work well for VR. The Oculus Quest 2, as an example, works really well with those kind of games, because otherwise you have to sort of point and teleport yourself places, or even if you walk around the analog stick, feels really, really weird in VR. So I think on-rail shooters, ton of sense. Sure, House, that would be cool. I kind of think Time Crisis would work. Whether it's an older one, or there have been rumors that there is a new Time Crisis game currently in development. The previous one was built on Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine can work fine in VR, so that would be an awesome reveal. Sure, the new Time Crisis going to arcades, but also going to PlayStation VR 2. That, Half-Life Alyx, you could start kind of building up a very interesting library doing things like that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch OLED edition that's been leaked, rumored, and now seemingly having a pre-order date maybe put out there? Let me know if you're trying to get one of these systems. Then also, what about Microsoft's response? Well, sort of response to the CMA and the whole Game Pass sales situation. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.